Hello, welcome to Bible Study Time and welcome to my Quiet Time Bible Study. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is the time where I invite you to come into the comfort of my prayer room with me, where we discuss different topics to do with the Most High, Creator God of the universe, and the Holy Hebrew Bible. So this week we are continuing on with our read-along series to do with the book of Jubilees. And I'm going to be reading through the copy that has been translated by R.H. Charles. And this is a very fascinating book to me, as many of you know. Because, I came across it in my adulthood, and so it's kind of like new, even though I've read it a couple times before. So, in our previous Bible study, we read through the book of Jubilees, chapters 13 and 14, and of course, I'm going to highlight some deeper concepts at the end of this series. But a couple things that I really wanted to highlight today, particularly to begin with, let's start with chapter 13 that we read in our last Bible study, where it mentioned the Most High's blessings upon Abram, because he wasn't Abraham quite yet, and he blessed Abram with abundance. And it's very interesting when you read through that story, and there are other ancient writings that speak about what literally transpired when Abram and Sarai went into Egypt. But we read previously in chapter 13 that after the Pharaoh of Egypt seized Sarai, the wife of Abram, the Most High plagued Pharaoh and his house, kind of highlighting the fact that disease and plagues can be used as some form of punishment. And it's very fascinating because that's not the only time that the Most High Creator God did that to the Egyptians, but particularly it was the Pharaoh. Also, when Abram left Egypt, he left with more than he had when he left. And a lot of different scholars have mentioned that, the Pharaoh was just sort of like, get out of here, and gave him lots of wealth. So he left there with many possessions, cattle, donkeys, horses, camels, and lots of male and female servants, along with a lot of gold and silver. I don't want to get into too much detail right now, but I did notice also in chapter number 13 that there was a huge gap between verse number 24 and 25. And so it appears that there was some information missing. And when you go online and you research this book of Jubilees, there are gaps in those two verses that might be an indication that whatever ancient scrolls that were found had missing components to them. And I kind of paused in our previous Bible study when I was reading through that because it really didn't make sense. This appears in verse number 25 of chapter 13, and it literally makes no sense because the chapter is speaking about Abram getting ready to go and rescue Lot, his nephew Lot, from those who took him, along with the population of Sodom and the king of Sodom captive. And then as you're reading that whole story about what's going on, all of a sudden the next verse just kind of switches to tithes. It doesn't mention tithes, but then it starts talking about, Abram giving a tenth to priests and things of that nature, which weren't really mentioned. Very fascinating to me. They were not mentioned previously in this particular book, the book of Jubilees. This is interesting because we know tithe and the paying of tithe was specifically to go towards the Levitical priesthood, which like today, in today's society, we don't really know who they are. I mean, they strayed away from the Most High Creator God according to the 66-book canon. But today, many different groups, Hebrew Israelite groups, churches, and things of that nature will use texts such as this one in the book of Jubilees in reference to the importance of paying tithes, even though we know, the Levitical priesthood is who the tithe would go to. Like, we don't know where they are. And so this scripture does make me wonder if it was inserted because it is 1,000% out of place. When you read through that chapter, it makes no sense. It's as if someone just literally put it in there. And that's, just some food for thought, right? Then also in our previous Bible study, we went on to read chapter 14. And of course, chapter 14 highlights the distress of Abram, being concerned about the fact that he could not bear seed. He didn't have any offspring, to the point where he hearkens the voice of his wife Sarai and decides to take his handmaid at her suggestion, or Sarai's handmaid at her suggestion, and Ishmael is born to Hagar. So today I would like to continue reading through the book of Jubilees, and so let's move on and start in chapter number 15. The book of Jubilees, chapter 15. One moment, let me get my glasses on. The sun it's quite chilly here in Toronto at the moment, and a little bit sort of muggy outside, very wintry. Okay, so last week we left off in chapter number 15. Sorry, in chapter number 14. And now this week we're going to continue reading in chapter number 15. And for those of you who have this book, I am in the first column at the bottom of page number 46. And in the 5th year of the 4th week of this Jubilee, in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, Abram celebrated the feast of the first fruits of the grain harvest. And he offered new offerings on the altar, the first fruits of the produce unto the Lord, an heifer and a goat and a sheep on the altar as a burnt sacrifice unto the Lord. Their first offerings and their drink offerings he offered upon the altar with frankincense. And the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am God Almighty. Approve thyself before me, and be thou perfect, and I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, and said, Behold, my ordinance is with thee, and thou shalt be the father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name from henceforth even forever shall be Abraham. For the father of many nations have I made thee, and I will make thee very great, and I will make thee into nations, and kings shall come forth from thee. And I shall establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, throughout their generations, for an eternal covenant, so that I may be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. The land where thou hast been a sojourner, the land of Canaan, that thou mayest possess it forever, and I will be their God. And the Lord said unto Abraham, And as for thee, do thou keep my commandment, thou and thy seed after thee, and circumcise ye every male among you, and circumcise your foreskins, and it shall be a token of an eternal covenant between me and you. And the child on the 8th day ye shall circumcise every male throughout your generations, him that is born in the house, or whom ye have bought with money from any stranger, whom ye have acquired, who is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house shall surely be circumcised. And those whom thou hast bought with money shall be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an eternal ordinance. And the uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin on the 8th day, that soul shall be cut off from his people, for he has broken my covenant. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai, thy wife, her name shall no more be called Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her, and give thee a son by her, and I will bless him, and he shall become a nation, and kings of nations shall proceed from him. And Abraham fell on his face and rejoiced, and said in his heart, Shall a son be born to him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bring forth? And Abraham said unto God, O that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Yea, and Sarah also shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him, an everlasting covenant, and for his seed after him. And as for Ishmael also have I heard thee, and behold, I will bless him, and make him great, and multiply him exceedingly, and he shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to thee in these days in the next year. And he left off speaking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham did according as God had said unto him. And he took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and whom he had bought with his money, every male in his house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin. And on the same day was Abraham circumcised, and all the men of his house, and all those who he had bought with his money from the children of the stranger were circumcised with him. This is the law for all the generations forever. And there is no circumcision of the days, and no omission of 1 day out of the 8 days. For it is an eternal ordinance, ordained and written on the heavenly tablets. And everyone that is born, the flesh of whose foreskin is not circumcised on the 8th day, belongs not to the children of the covenant which the Lord made with Abraham, but to the children of destruction. Nor is there moreover any sign on him that he is the Lord's, but he is destined to be destroyed and slain from the earth, and to be rooted out of the earth, for he has broken the covenant of the Lord our God. For all the angels of the presence and all the angels of sanctification have been so created from the day of their creation. And before the angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification, he hath sanctified Israel, that they should be with him and with his holy angels. And do thou command the children of Israel, and let them observe the sign of this covenant for their generations as an eternal ordinance, and they will not be rooted out of the land. For the command is ordained for a covenant, that they should observe it forever among all the children of Israel. For Ishmael and his sons and his brothers and Esau, the Lord did not cause to approach him, and he chose them not, because they are the children of Abraham, because he knew them, but he chose Israel to be his people, and he sanctified it and gathered it from amongst all the children of men. For there are many nations and many peoples, and all are his. And over all hath he placed spirits in authority to lead them astray from him. But over Israel he did not appoint any angel or spirit, for he alone is their ruler, and he will preserve them and require them at the hand of his angels and his spirits. and at the hand of all his powers, in order that he may preserve them and bless them, and that they may be his and he may be theirs from henceforth forever. And now I announce unto thee that the children of Israel will not keep true to this ordinance, and they will not circumcise their sons according to all this law. For in the flesh of their circumcision they will omit this circumcision of their sons, and all of them. Sons of Belair will leave their sons uncircumcised as they were born. And there will be great wrath from the Lord against the children of Israel, because they have forsaken his covenant, and turned aside from his word, and provoked and blasphemed, inasmuch as they do not observe the ordinance of this law. For they have treated their members like the Gentiles, so that they may be removed and rooted out of the land. And there will no more be pardon or forgiveness unto them, so that there should be forgiveness and pardon for all the sin of this eternal error. Moving on to chapter number 16, at the bottom of page 48. And on the new moon of the 4th month we appeared unto Abraham at the oak of Mamre, and we talked with him, and we announced to him that a son would be given to him by Sarah his wife. And Sarah laughed, for she heard that we had spoken these words with Abraham, and we admonished her, and she became afraid and denied that she had laughed on account of the words. And we told her the name of her son, as his name is ordained and written in the heavenly tablets, and written in the heavenly tablets, Isaac, and that when we returned to her at a set time, she would have conceived a son. And in this month the Lord executed his judgments on Sodom and Gomorrah and Zeboim and all the region of Jordan, and he burned them with fire and brimstone and destroyed them until this day, even as I have declared unto thee all their works, that they are wicked and sinners exceedingly, and they defile themselves and commit fornication in their flesh, and work uncleanness on the earth. And in like manner God will execute judgment on the places where they have done according to the uncleanness of the Sodomites, like unto the judgment of Sodom. But Lot we saved, for God remembered Abraham, and sent him out from the midst of the overthrow. And he and his daughters committed sin upon the earth, such as had not been on the earth since the days of Adam till this time. For the man lay with his daughters, and behold, it was commanded and engraven concerning all his seed on the heavenly tablets, to remove them and root them out, and to execute judgment upon them like the judgment of Sodom, and to leave no seed of the man on earth on the day of condemnation. And in this month Abraham moved from Hebron, and departed and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur in the mountains of Gerar. And in the middle of the 5th month he moved from thence, and dwelt at the well of the oath. And in the middle of the 6th month the Lord visited Sarah, and did unto her as he had spoken, and she conceived. And she bare a son in the 3rd month, and in the middle of the month, at the time of which the Lord had spoken to Abraham, on the festival of the first fruits of the harvest, Isaac was born. And Abraham circumcised his son on the 8th day. He was the first that was circumcised according to the covenant, which is ordained forever. And in the 6th year of the 4th week we came to Abraham to the well of the oath. And we appeared unto him as we had told Sarah, that we should return to her, and she would have conceived a son. And we returned in the 7th month, and found Sarah with child before us, and we blessed him. And we announced to him all the things which had been decreed concerning him, that he should not die till he should beget 6 sons more, and should see them before he died. But that in Isaac should his name and seed be called, and that all the seed of his sons should be Gentiles, and be reckoned with the Gentiles. But from the sons of Isaac one should become a holy seed, and should not be reckoned among the Gentiles. For he should become the portion of the Most High, and all his seed had fallen into the possession of God, that it should be unto the Lord a people for his possession above all nations, and that it should become a kingdom and priests and a holy nation. And we went our way, and we announced to Sarah all that we had told him, and they both rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And he built there an altar to the Lord, who had delivered him, and who was making him rejoice in the land of his sojourning. And he celebrated a festival of joy in this month 7 days, near the altar which he had built at the well of the oath. And he built booths. And he built booths for himself and for his servants on this festival, and he was the first to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles on the earth. And during these 7 days he brought each day to the altar a burnt offering to the Lord, 2 oxen, 2 rams, 7 sheep, 1 he-goat for a sin offering, that he might atone thereby for himself and for his seed. And as a thank offering, 7 rams, 7 kids, 7 sheep, and 7 he-goats, and their fruit offerings and their drink offerings. And he burnt all the fat thereof on the altar, a chosen offering unto the Lord for a sweet-smelling savor. And morning and evening he burnt fragrant substances, frankincense, and galbanum, and stacte, and nard, and myrrh, and spice, and costume. All these 7 he offered, crushed, mixed together in equal parts, and pure. And he celebrated this feast during 7 days, rejoicing with all his heart and with all his soul, and all those who were in his house. And there was no stranger with him, nor any that was uncircumcised. And he blessed his Creator, who had created him in his generation, for he had created him according to his good pleasure, for he knew and perceived that from him would arise the plant of righteousness for the eternal generations, and from him a holy seed, so that it should become like him who had made all things. And he blessed and rejoiced, and he called the name of the festival of the Lord, a joy acceptable to the Most High. And we blessed him forever, and all his seed after him throughout all generations of the earth, because he celebrated this festival in its season, according to the testimony of the heavenly tablets. For this reason it is so ordained on the heavenly tablets concerning Israel, that they shall celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days with joy in the 7th month, acceptable before the Lord, a statute forever throughout their generations every year. And to this there is no limit of days, for it is ordained forever regarding Israel, that they should celebrate it and dwell in booths, and set wreaths upon their heads, and take leafy boughs and willows from the brook. And Abraham took branches and palm trees and the fruit of goodly trees, and every day going round the altar with the branches 7 times a day, in the morning he praised and gave thanks to his God for all things in joy. So that brings me to the end of chapter number 16. And I think I'm going to stop there today, and we will unpack just some small concepts next week as we go through. And of course, we've been sort of introduced to the feast, as I previously mentioned, which is very fascinating to me. So we'll definitely unpack that. And I'm so grateful to the Most High Creator God of the universe for just allowing me the opportunity to record this video and actually have access to this book and to all of the Bible study tools that I have. I'm grateful to him for protecting me and guiding me and just protecting my heart and, having his holy angels in my home, as a hedge of protection. I want to thank you so very much for joining me on this Bible study journey, and thank you for clicking on this video today. And I want to remind you before I go that the Most High Creator God of the universe, who sent his Son Yeshua HaMashiach to die for our sins, loves his children.